According to most leading anthropologists, the core reason, the core cause of all the suffering and dysfunction in modern society is something they call instinct mismatch. Our instincts slowly evolved and were slowly calibrated to our ancient environment. And because our ancient environment was filled with scarcity and danger, we had to have overpowering instincts to compel us to continue to try to survive in the ancient world. Not only try to survive, but try to get up to the top of the hierarchy in our ancient hunter-gatherer tribes. Because only the people that got into the top 20% or maybe top 10% got to reproduce. And so we have all these instincts that compelled us to want to get to the top 20% and that compelled us to survive by getting enough food to eat and overcoming the necessary dangers we needed to overcome. So our instincts are incredibly strong. They're impossible to resist. But today, in modern society, the environment is so much different that our instincts mess us up. This is why so many people feel a compulsion to keep eating even when they don't want to keep eating. They feel a compulsion to keep talking. You feel a compulsion to assert yourself into the environment verbally and intellectually and linguistically, even though part of you thinks in the back of your mind, maybe you should just shut up and listen to other people talk. You talk yourself out of situations just as often as you can talk yourself into situations. Because just like we have an unstoppable hunger instinct, we have this unstoppable ego expression instinct. We also have unstoppable sexual desires, because whoever had the strongest sexual desire in the past was compelled and motivated by that sexual desire. Whoever could become motivated by their sexual desires the most, they were the most likely to succeed. So today, this is what Napoleon Hill was talking about when he talked about sexual transmutation. Back in the day, the only way you could get laid, the only way you could have sex, the only way you could propagate your genes was to get to the top of the hierarchy. So that compelled you to push your way forward. But today, there's a lot of ways to shunt that energy, which is why you need to consciously manage your sexual energy. Which is why the most successful people today, not only do they have a lot of sexual energy, but they can consciously channel where that sexual energy goes into their motivations, into their ambitions. But most people aren't like that. Most people are a slave to their instincts. Now, there's three possible responses to this idea of instinct mismatch. Three possible responses that will determine the quality of your life. The first response is the most common response, to be completely oblivious, to not have any clue what's happening. Just be a slave to your instincts, hope for the best, and wonder why your life sucks so goddamn bad. The second response is the more enlightened response. In fact, the second response is the driving intellectual force behind all philosophy and religion since the dawn of civilization. Confucianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Stoicism, Aristotelian ethics. These are all attempts to kind of manage our behavior so we don't let our instincts ruin our lives. So the second response, the more enlightened response, is to understand your instincts. To not only understand your instincts, but to carefully manage your instincts. Because if you can manage your instincts, they won't ruin your life. This is kind of what Jung said many, many years ago, before they found out what instincts are, before the invention of evolutionary psychology, which is the study of how our instincts drive our behavior and our thinking. Jung famously said that unless you make the unconscious conscious, your unconscious, will run your life, and you will call it fate. You will think the world is fate, but it's really your unconscious driving your behaviors. But in reality, it's not your unconscious, it's your instincts. So we can rephrase Jung in the modern sense by saying, unless you understand and manage your instincts, your life is going to be a fucking train wreck. But there's a third response, a third, much more enlightened response to the idea of instinct mismatch. And that is to not only understand and manage your own instincts so your life doesn't turn into a train wreck, but to understand and leverage or maybe exploit or maybe manipulate the instincts of other people. This way, you can persuade them to do whatever you want. Because if you understand human nature, if you understand the instincts of other people, if you understand that most everybody you meet in the world is going to be irresistibly compelled to obey their instincts, if you can get inside their instincts and use hypnotic language patterns, use presuppositional questions to build up their instinctive desire inside their brains and covertly channel the expression of their instincts, you can get other people to do anything. This is how food manufacturers can make food that is so delicious and so addictive we can't stop eating it. We can't stop shoving it into our pie holes because they understand the hunger instinct. This is why people that write serial dramas can hook us in so easily, because they understand our love instincts. This is how advertisers and marketers have been selling shit to us that we don't need ever since they invented TV, because they know how to trigger our deep instincts. But you, dear viewer, you can still do this conversationally if you understand the language patterns of instinctive persuasion, if you understand the linguistic presuppositional questions that go into building up their instinctive desires so you can channel them to your outcome. You can get anybody to do anything. I used to know this guy. A guy that was married. It's a story you have no doubt heard plenty of times. It's a story you no doubt understand more than most plenty of times. This guy was a happily married man. They had 3 kids. He had a wife. She was just a couple of years over 30. I bet you know what's coming now. And she started thinking, I don't feel fulfilled anymore. I'm thinking about maybe we should get a divorce. I still love you, honey, but I want to divorce you and go find some other guy that could give me fulfillment. He was devastated. And so he said, please, 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 let's at least go to counseling to see if we can fix this. Let's at least go to counseling to see if we can save our marriage. If not for me, for the sake of our poor children who will feel abandoned by their mother and have lives of unhappiness and despair. And she said, okay, we'll go to counseling. And so he looked for a counselor, and he found this counselor. This counselor was a super genius. This counselor that had a massive reputation. This counselor that had an 86% success rate, which meant that 86% of the couples that were in trouble that went to see this counselor, they ended up living happily ever after. The problem was, because this counselor had such a stunning reputation, there was a 6-month waiting list. And so he convinced his wife, please, honey, let's wait 6 months to see this counselor and give our marriage one last shot. And she said, okay, I'll wait 6 months. So they went to see this counselor, and she looked at them and she said, this is how I do things. The first session, I'm going to talk to the 2 of you at the same time. But every session after that, I will talk to you individually. And what I'm going to teach you how to do is I'm going to teach you how to seduce the crap out of each other. Because most people walk through the world expecting the world to do half the work. If they have an unhappy life, they think, I need to find something somewhere else. It's if you're shopping for something, like you're shopping for a particular burrito. And if you go to a burrito shop and they don't have your particular burrito, you think you can find it if you go to a different burrito shop. That's an actually good burrito shopping strategy, because different burrito shops have different kinds of burritos. But if you're looking for fulfillment, the fulfillment doesn't exist out in the world. So if you're not finding fulfillment here, you're not going to find it somewhere else, because fulfillment is a response to how you interact with the world. If you want fulfillment from the world, you need to change how you interact with the world. You need to change how you operate on the world. So I will teach you how to seduce people. I will teach you how to become incredibly seductive. I will teach you how to understand human instincts. And with your understanding of human instincts, I will teach you some presuppositional questions questions that you can ask people that will build up their instinctive desire. But it's up to you individually, husband and wife, to try to seduce each other. You need to take responsibility for your marriage. You need to take responsibility for your own fulfillment. You can't find fulfillment somewhere else. If you can't find fulfillment here, you're not going to find it here. Because like the guy said when he was sitting on the side of the road and this wagon train came in and said, "Hey, friend, what kind of people live in this town?" And he said, "I don't know. What kind of people lived in the town where you came from?" And they said, "Oh, they were very friendly." And he said, "That's good, because the people in this town are very friendly." Then he saw another wagon train a couple of hours later, and they said, "What kind of people live in this town?" And he said, "Well, it depends. What kind of people lived in the town where you're coming from?" They said, "Oh, they were all assholes." He said, "Well, the people in this town are assholes too." Because the punchline, the moral of the story, is the world responds to you based on how you interact with the world. If you can't find fulfillment here, you're not going to find it here. But if you want to find fulfillment here, it's about how you change your behavior. You change how you communicate. You take responsibility for the stuff you get from the world. If you operate on the world, if you talk to somebody and you're not getting the response you want, it's up to you and only you to change your behavior, to change how you communicate, to take responsibility for the responses you get as a function of you. The world responds to you based only on you. If you wait for other people in the world to change their behavior to make it easier for you, you're going to be waiting a long goddamn time, because the world doesn't care what you think the world should do. The world does what it does, but the world is a response to how you operate on the world. Because here's the thing that a lot of psychologists don't like to tell their clients, and that most people don't have much of a free will. Most people will respond to you based on how you communicate with them, not based on their conscious mind. Most people have a conscious mind that is just watching all this stuff happen and then telling them stories about why what happened just happened. So if you want to control your responses you get from the world, if you want to create massive fulfillment from other people, then you need to take responsibility about how you communicate. I can teach you the language patterns. I can teach you the hypnotic language patterns. I can teach you all you need to know about human nature. I can teach you all you need to know about the presuppositional questions, the double bind either or presuppositional questions that you can ask people that will build up their massive desire, and you can direct their instincts in any direction you want. But it's up to you to practice this process, to accept all the feedback that you get, and realize that if you want better fulfillment, it's up to you to change how you operate on the world. Because there's two types of people in the world. There are people that wander the earth waiting for the world to change, waiting for other people to make it easier on them. Then there's brave people like you who want to change your life, who want to become more persuasive, who want to become more engaged with the world, and who want to take responsibility for the responses you get. And for kind people like you, for smart people like you, for proactive people like you, for intelligent people like you, the world will do you whatever you want the world to do, so long as you take responsibility and feel and understand and imagine and realize and remember that you have absolute power over the behavior of other people.